In a quarter mile, sharp right onto Ben Hill Road.
Okay. It should be like right here.
In a quarter mile, sharp right onto Ben Hill Road.
So we're coming up around the bend. Our sign is down. Our Summer Wells sign is down. Can't even see their house now.
Sharp right onto Ben Hill Road. In 600 feet, you will arrive at your destination.
Don's driveway. Do a 3-point turn. Look at this. It looks. You can't see nothing.
You have arrived.
Can't even see their house with all this greenery.
I think Candus has a hand in whatever happened in this home, and I think Don covered it up if, in fact, he was at work at the time she disappeared. Is he truly trying to blame his wife for something that he did? They know what happened to her. I can see a child injuring themselves. That is something else. You know, I don't think this was planned. Something snapped in her. Molly Golightly's live, he said he had 7 alibis and she had none. She's going down. My thing is one person only needs one alibi, the truth. But with that, him explaining himself like, I got 7 alibis. Who needs 7 alibis? That shows right there that could possibly be deception. Did he come home and take care of business once she was dead and he needed to move her body? Or, again, she was out. I mean, look at that. There's no gate around that property whatsoever to keep kids in. Summer was 5 years old. 5-year-olds make mistakes. They do things their parents don't want them to do, especially in a comfort zone like their home. There is a theory that maybe something happened to her beforehand, but with all the events and evidence that we have collected, primarily that somebody was out with her alive that day, and after the witness came forward about the violence that goes on in this home, it's just hard. It's hard to believe that she left this. I don't think anything happened to her at the water hole. I think she died right here on this mountain.
All right, so I've been communicating with Don Wells via text since we've been up here, asking him for help, saying, hey, come out and help us, come out, we want your help to find Summer. He's been responding back and forth, says he couldn't meet us, I said to him, we want to put our personal differences aside with you and Candus and would like you both to come join us as we search for Summer together. Are you guys willing to do that? Still doesn't, say yes. He says, where are you going to search? Where almost 200 different police agencies haven't searched already. Need to think outside the box. Then he says, hey, didn't want me up on Grassy Creek Road for some reason. That's on top of Bays Mountain. What does that mean? What is he trying to direct us up to Grassy Creek Road? I responded, hey, Don, please answer. Have something to tell you important. Okay. So we're trying to call Don. We're trying to meet him. We're trying to get him to come out with us to search for Summer Wells while we're in Tennessee, while we're the only group right now actively looking for Summer Wells.
He's just making excuses. He's making excuses. We're in town. We are the only group
I'll get
that's
him.
actively searching for Summer.
I'll get
and
him.
he does not want to meet us. He knows we're here. He's finding excuses not to meet us. So
5-year-old child's missing and he likes to play games. Here.
When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Don, it's Molly Golightly. I know that you guys know that we're in town and we just want to find your daughter. All we want to do is find Summer and we were hoping to get your help. Hi, Don. It's Molly Golightly again. We're here in town. We want to help you find Summer. We're the only active searchers right now that cares about your daughter. I wish that you would call us back and let us talk and meet with you. It's so strange the way we keep coming down here and you keep dodging us. This is your daughter. We're the only ones that care.
The Wells home right there. The Wells home. House of Horrors.
Right there, House of Horrors.
Well, hello, my beautiful people of TikTok. This is kind of different. So, I've been covering the case of Summer Wells back since 2021 for 4 years. And this case has gone cold. It's out of Hawkins County, Tennessee, one of the first Tennessee children's cases that I have ever got involved in as being a true crime content creator. And me, as well as Chronicles of Olivia and a couple other content creators, went out to investigate the case of Summer Wells. And we learned a lot. There was a lot of information pointing directly at the mom and father, Candus Bly, as well as Donald Wells. And their children were taken from them after Summer Wells disappeared. But we talked to a lot of family members and friends. They had a lot of friends that they partied with out there in Hawkins County, which is, where did she disappear from? The Beach Creek area. I think it was the Beach Creek area. It's right off of Ben Hill Road in Beach Creek, something or other. Long story short, she was up on top of a mountain when she allegedly disappeared. The parents immediately said abduction, but there was this vast, it's kind of like the situation we're dealing with Lily and Jack Sullivan, that type of environment where it's really rural. There's not a whole lot of money there. It takes 20, 30 minutes for law enforcement to get out to the mountain to even do the investigation. Well, we're just learning that there is a break in the case, or potentially a break in the case, in the Summer Wells case. So Jason Jensen, which if you guys don't know, I know Jason Jensen. Jason Jensen I met when I was covering the Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner case. Now, who is Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner? Well, if you remember Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie's case, when they were in Utah, Moab, Utah, kind of where the whole thing, where the smacking of the face and the law enforcement pulling them over and the whole thing, well, that all started at a coffee house right across the street from the Moonflower. The Moonflower is where Kylan Schulte worked. Crystal Turner and Kylan Schulte saw Brian Laundrie slap Gabby Petito's face, but their store owners and workers called law enforcement to report this altercation. Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner took off and was going to, going on their way. Their day was over. They were ready to have, start their day together. And long story short, within 30 days, all 4 of them would be deceased. Brian Laundrie, unalived Gabby Petito, came back to Florida, unalived himself. And Crystal Turner and Kylan Schulte were found unalived, the big M word, unalived at their campground. And come to find out, it was a co-worker of Crystal Turner's. Well, that's how I met Jason Jensen. So I have high respect and high regard for Jason Jensen. And Jason Jensen is the private investigator that just received the breaking lead that he is now reporting to TBI. I'm not sure how I feel about the lead. I'm not sure how I feel about the person calling him, because the lead is basically a burglary that turned into a kidnapping. And so now they're thinking that this might be something related to Summer Wells, that it might have been burglarizing her home, and she was the one that could have been ultimately kidnapped. Now, many people are also saying that this is shocking with the timing, it coming up to the 4-year mark. Candus and Don Wells have been trying desperately to shake the public stink off them, because many people believe that it was her mom and father, Don Wells and Candus Bly, that did something to her. Now, there was also an event down at this watering hole in the adjoining county next to them, Sullivan County. And at this watering hole, it was alleged by a person that was with them that Summer Wells went underwater. Many people believe that she came up, that they got the water out, and they thought she was fine, but later succumb to a dry drowning. And that's what they believe happened. I'm not sure what happened. All I know is I truly believe Don Wells was home when Candus, Grandis, and Summer Wells made it back to the mountain. Because when I was at his job site, they told me he had his boys. That makes sense because the one thing that was missing out of the water hole was the boys. However, if you listen to Candus's story, when she came home from the market, they needed to put some groceries away. The boys came out of the house to help her with the groceries. That was the critical detail that told me that Don had come home. I also talked to Don Wells' coworkers about what time he came back from lunch. And here's the kicker. His employees, and this was all the way back in 2021, 2022 when I had these conversations, but his coworkers said that they didn't remember exactly when he left, but he left that day between 1:30 and 2:30, and they cannot say when he came back to the job site. They don't know if he ever came back to the job site that day. And that's coming from his own people. So we have a situation where the boys were with him that morning. The boys happened to be home when Summer and Candus and Grandis get back to the house, yet they're trying to imply Don Wells wasn't there and hadn't been home all day. Why? And now we're hearing this break in the case that could be something. Now, I'm not holding my breath on it because we know how crazy this case is. Is somebody trolling Jason Jensen? Jason Jensen's a well-to-do, very knowledgeable PI, so I don't think he's going to succumb to a troll, okay? I think he's got more scruples and brain cells to succumb to a troll. So I know that Jason Jensen is not going to say something without doing at least bare minimal searching. So is this a legitimate lead? Coming from Jason Jensen, it gives me promise, okay? If it came from the unscrupulous PI we know as SF, I would say hell to the nah. But this is coming from Jason Jensen that I know. I've spoken to the man. I know he is a good man. He helped Sean Paul Schulte find leads to uncover what happened to his daughter pro bono. He's got no dog in the fight. He puts his money where his mouth is, and he helps the community and people out there in the world. And he gets paid for being a private eye, but there's a lot of work Jason Jensen does free of charge for the community and the world abroad. So we have to take that into consideration. He is somebody that I highly respect. And so I'm listening. I'm taking this lead that he's getting and bringing to TBI very, very, very seriously when it comes to the Summer Wells case. But we're getting some movement, guys. This could be something. It could be nothing. But the good news is it's making people finally start talking about the Summer Wells case again. She disappeared from her home in Hawkins County on June 15th, 2021, under suspicious circumstances. Nobody believes her mother and father. Nobody. Okay? So, a burglary, that's kind of right up the alley in the lifestyle that Candus and Don were in. Okay? So, I'm paying very, very, very much attention to this lead. I've been waiting to see an update on this. I'd seen someone posting on Facebook that there was a tip called in. Yeah. And I read it. And when, had it been anybody other than Jason Jensen, our conversation would be a little different this morning. But when I say highly respect Jason Jensen, I highly respect Jason Jensen. He doesn't come with the bullshit. Okay? He just doesn't. This picture that they took in the back seat was creepy. It was, with her near the milk jugs. And not only that, her fingers are turning purple and, it looked like her heart was stopping. It appeared that, she did not look well in that photo. And when you see the video that photo was taken, yeah, Summer Wells, that's correct, love. When you see the video that it was taken, it's even more sus. Because why are they taking this video? And why do they seem so frantic inside the vehicle when they're taking it? A lot of people don't realize that photo of her being looking weird on those milk jugs in the back seat of the car. That photo was taken from a video. there was a quick, like 2 or 3 second video where you hear Candus saying something, but it's a little frantic, believe it or not. And I think we need to go back to the original video that photo was taken from so we can listen to it. Because I remember when I was covering this case, that was all types of funky for me. All types of funky. So let's just keep our prayers on Summer Wells. She deserves justice. She deserves justice. I don't know what this poor baby has went through. But after I learned who Don Wells was, I finally got to speak to him directly after 2.5 years of hunting for his daughter and trying to get in front of him to speak to him. He kept dodging me, which is what provoked the protest in front of his job. That was a day that he drove us around all over, had us up in the morning from 6 a.m. actually 5 a.m. to meet him at 6 a.m. And he had us on a wild goose chase. And I'm thinking, no parent does this for people that are trying to help find your child. And so we had just had it. When we found him, we pulled out signs. We got out there. We started screaming at him. Cops were called. Cops told him there's nothing we can do about it. They're within the rights, right? So he ended up taking off from the job site. They wouldn't let him back on. But I think the families in that neighborhood didn't want him back on. I mean, he's missing a child, and there's kids playing soccer. I'm sorry. I have a problem with that. I have a huge problem with that. And if people have a problem with my activism, oh well. Have a problem with it. It's your problem, not mine. Yeah, I really do believe. And then hearing this burglary, it just doesn't go with the case, though. You know, that's the one thing that when I was reading this, and I like Jason Jensen. He has a great place in my heart. He speaks, I listen. And I don't know. But the problem is I trust him. I don't think that this is some type of PR or anything like that. He's well known anyway, so he doesn't really need the PR. But my concern is I'm so fluent with the Summer Wells case, every single detail of this case, that I don't see where this burglary and kidnapping fits. That's the only problem with the story is I need more information, because everything that I personally know about this case, and we went through everybody, even the person that they thought worked at the cemetery and had access to the whatever that burnt, that cremates people. We talked to him. We talked to his family. We talked to everybody. Back when we started the Summer Wells case, we were ruthless, okay, to get information. We would literally have like four content creators in a car, and we would pull up. We had pictures of everybody in the case. So while we're driving around, if we saw somebody, we just stopped the car right there and all just came out of the car with cameras in your face, peppering you with questions, because we wanted you to whatever fell out of your mouth. We didn't want people thinking about their answers, because we were dealing with a 5-year-old missing girl. So we literally just kind of shocked the people. And that was kind of our edge in the case, was the shock factor, because we threw a lot of people off their game, and where they would have normally probably lied to us or given us a ruse, they didn't even think to do that. So we learned a lot of information about the couch being moved from where she was. Why wasn't the couch in front of the door downstairs? Because the couch has always been in front of the door. That's when we realized there was a missing couch from inside their home. A missing couch that a child could have been placed in and taken and carried off without anybody knowing about it. There was a lot of stuff we uncovered with this case, but no matter how you looked at this case, the case always came back to that house and came back to that mother and that father. So this is going to be interesting, and I'm going to keep you guys updated, because Summer Wells is very personal to Bullhorn Betty. And when I say very personal, I mean that to no end. This is as personal almost as Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers to me. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers is very personal to me. Very personal, because those assholes tried to have me arrested, tried to lie to have me arrested. If I do some crime, I'll do my time. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm following the law and you do some dubious crap to get me in trouble, that's a personal. You took it from being me doing my job to making it a personal issue. Now they've got the stink on them of Bullhorn Betty. And I'm talking about Chris, Katie, and Terry and Kathy, because I've got my claws in them now. And so legally, and I'm not letting go. What they did was wrong, and I'm going to stand up and fight for my rights. Now, so that's why this case comes in number 2. This used to be number 1 until the Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers case. But this is ultra a personal case to Bullhorn Betty. I actually started a documentary. The reason why I stopped the documentary is because me and Jonathan Lee Riches don't talk. He cheated on me for a year with Magnolia, and I had no idea. So it's been very, very difficult for me personally to create a documentary that my ex-boyfriend is all over. It was an amazing documentary. I spent a lot of time. I went out there, and then the last time when I was going to finish up the documentary, which I think, God works in mysterious ways, I went out there to get my clips up and down Ben Hill Road for the documentary, the final pieces that I needed. And I didn't check my footage whenever I left. I didn't recheck and make sure my face looked so huge because I didn't have my camera setting right. So it didn't get my whole body. It just got like a headshot coming directly at you. It was perfect, like tone-wise and how I was talking and stuff, but the images really, really sucked. So I have had always, after I realized that we were already out of Hawkins County, so I got to go back there and do a retake of that, and I've never been back since. And that was the final little tidbit that I needed for my documentary. And it was going to be a 3-part Summer Wells documentary on everything that we learned. Even Hunter's mom, before she passed away, her statements that many people have forgotten about. She believes that Summer Wells was abused by Don Wells. She believes that she was unalived at the house. She believes that Don Wells and Candus Bly know more about where Summer is and what happened to her. And Hunter's mom used to be Candus's best friend. And we've got all of that on filmed. So everybody in the community has looked at Candus and Dawn. Candus and Dawn, their story never made sense. The abduction is an impossibility. I mean, it really is. Based upon how they said it, when you apply it on that mountain, it's impossible. Think about it. You got a kid, you're kidnapping a kid. A kid's going to kick and scream if they don't know you. Okay? They're not just going to let you scoop them up and start running with them and jumping down a mountain. Okay? No screams, no nothing. And they're trying to say that this guy could have gone down a dog trail. This dog trail embankment is so steep, they would have fallen. He would have lost something. They would have been footprints. There's no way you could have gone down there without leaving huge impressions from the weight and the drag from the slope going down the mountain. So everything that they've said that's supposed to have taken place in the Summer Wells case didn't. It didn't. Leaving many to believe that her mom and dad knew more. And I truly do believe they know more. I had an opportunity to finally be face-to-face with Don Wells. When I had an opportunity to finally meet him, which was 2.5 years later, I was out there in front of his house filming, and he was working on his truck, and I seen him working on his truck, and I said, hey, Don, you gonna come down and talk to me? And he's like, who that? I said, Bullhorn! That was it. And I'm like, nah. We watched him walk in the house, and I'm like, yeah, he's not going to go. So we finished our filming, and I was with Chronicles of Olivia, and we were just about to turn and start leaving, and I looked up, and the truck was moving. And I look over at Mom, and I say, Mom, stay here. It looks like Don is coming down here. He's going to come down here and talk to us. And so we stayed down, and Don did. After 2.5 years, me trying to sit down with him to find out just a little bit about his daughter. He said, no cameras. I didn't record it, but he recorded me. He had a camera in his front pocket and the camera lens pointing toward me. So I know he recorded our entire conversation. So, I'm upbeat. If you know anything about me when I do an interview, especially one on the spot, I usually have sunglasses on. I usually have sunglasses on for a purpose because I like to analyze my subject. And I start asking them questions, and I do a little bit of moving around. I'm a little bubbly. I'm kind of, it's quite the show. I do have a strategy, and it's something that helps keep the mood down and helps me, ask tougher questions without it inciting the person. So I have a technique that I use when I'm interviewing people face to face. So I was deploying this technique, and he was sober. I had never seen Don's eyes so clear before, but when I spoke to him, I truly was speaking to a very sober man. He didn't appear to be on substances or alcohol at the time I spoke to him. He tried to imply that it was the Department of Children and Family Services that had came over the day before. He had explained 2 people came over, a guy and a woman. The woman was the supervisor or the head person. And as they were leaving, they were talking about closing out the case, and that Summer was outside, and the lady went over and spoke to Summer privately and had a conversation with Summer while he was sitting there talking to his caseworker. Nobody knows what that conversation entailed with that worker, but Don Wells tries to put a spin on it and act like that because she had this private conversation, they must have been the one that came back 24 hours later and snatched her. That's what he was trying to imply to me, which clearly doesn't make sense. But what I do believe happened is I do believe Summer Wells told that investigator something. I don't know what she told her, but she must have talked to her dad or her mom, and they must have said, oh my gosh, she shouldn't have said that. Who knows what she said? Could it have been something related to maybe good or bad touching? I don't know. But then the very next day, she was gone. So he went over and just started telling me about that conversation, because I asked him, is there any more any more people we can look into? We've looked into every single person you told us was responsible for the disappearance of your daughter. Who else do we have? And he said, we have no one. I said, well, where does that leave us? I said, everything keeps coming back here to this house in this mountain. Can you explain that? And he said, no, I can't. And I said, well, we have a pickle here. And that's the word I use. We got a pickle here. Because from my point of view, we have a missing child, and all of the information and leads come right back to here. I said, I've been working this case for over 2.5 years, and no matter how I work it, everything comes right back here. Can you explain that? And he goes, no. Okay, well, what do you think we should do? Where do you think our next steps should be? Who do you think we should look into? I don't know. And then that's when he went on with the conversation about the caseworkers coming to his house the day before she disappeared. So I really don't know what to think. I definitely don't believe caseworkers are going around Hawkins County and snatching kids. So that just doesn't logically make sense for me. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. And then, you look at everybody else, all the people in and around this child. Really, the only people that would have had the motive, means, and opportunity would be Candus, and Don, or the 3 boys. Those were the only people around her that would have had the opportunity to disappear her. So that's where we're looking at. So ground zero is truly ground zero, and the persons of interest are her family. And now we're hearing that there was possibly a burglary and a kidnapping. Is that associated with Summer Wells? Where's Summer Wells? I don't know. But we will keep you updated on this case. We'll keep you informed. If you have any questions, guys, please reach out to bullhornbetty@gmail.com. Yeah, include myself. Everyone is guessing. She spent a lot of hours searching and investigating, so no, she is not just guessing. No, I'm not guessing. We were out there every few months for almost 2 years. We were searching in the hollers. We interviewed any and everybody that was in arm's length of that family. Co-workers, even Dudley. You guys remember Dudley? Don Wells accused him of doing something with Summer. We met Dudley and his wife we took him out to dinner to get an interview to find out what was happening. And he's the one that told us about the day before and how odd Don Wells was acting the day before Summer Wells went missing. So this was the day that he knew that the Department of Children and Family Services were coming to his house on June 14th. That's how we learned of all that information. You guys would never have learned that information if it wasn't for our interview with Dudley. So yeah, I do not guess at this stuff. I actually, I do very thorough research. Many times, like Sebastian Rogers, you guys haven't seen me out in the field. We were unable to get out in the field because of the corruption in Sumner County and their ties to the Proudfoots and them causing a very dangerous situation for me and my team to get in there. And that's from the Sumner County Sheriff causing the danger. I just want to clear that up. It's not the Proudfoots anymore. It's the whole damn police department or sheriff's department that's causing problems in the Sebastian Rogers case. So I haven't been out there in the field. This one, we were out in the field. This one, we went searching in the freaking mountains. We had people screaming at us. We had people coming up to us telling their story. We were out there for weeks. Weeks. From Sullivan County to Hawkins County. We went into the hippie house. We went into the store. We interviewed everybody. This is one of the cases where not only did we interview everybody, we have everything on camera. I had audio. I was suited with audio under my clothes. So even if I had to take my cameras off, you could hear all the audio. So I was suited with audio under my clothes. We had spy cameras all over us, pins, everything. There wasn't a place that we went that wasn't recorded by 1,000 different angles in the Summer Wells case. I guarantee we probably have the most comprehensive investigative video file of anybody. If law enforcement takes people to court, they can call Bullhorn Betty. We literally have all these interviews on file. So I just want to clear that up. No, this is not guessing for me. This is, we did a full-fledged investigation. Like Don Wells knows Bullhorn Betty. He says, oh shit, when I come in town. Okay? How long has she been missing? She's been missing since June 15th, 2021. The red flags with Sebastian as well. Crazy, yes. But here's the difference. The corruption in Hawkins County is much different than the corruption in Sumner County. The corruption in Hawkins County is the sheriff there, Ronnie Lawson. His son is a diddler. His son is a child diddler, okay? And his son was arrested for diddling with children at church. He was supposed to get 20 years. He was out in 6 months. There's a different type of corruption in Hawkins County that's very, very, very concerning. But the type of corruption we're seeing in Sumner County is different. Like Hawkins County, it's covering the sheriff's ass and his family's ass. That's where the corruption is and where it's created. However, over in Sumner County, they just know everybody. It's politics. It has to do with money and it has to do with voting. That's the issue. That's the type of corruption they have over in Sumner County, keeping power. So it's a different type of corruption. Both places are corrupt and they're corrupt for different reasons. But Hawkins County is by far my biggest disappointment because I begged the voters there to get rid of Ronnie Lawson. If they got rid of Ronnie Lawson, the place would be cleaned up. The crime that's going on in that street would stop. Ronnie Lawson is the problem in Hawkins County. And until they get rid of that corrupt sheriff, they're never going to have resolution in Summer Wells' case because I think it directly ties to him somehow, some way, or his family. So we've got some issues here in this Summer Wells case. So glad you're covering this case. Been way long with her. Yeah, and it's been a long time since I covered this case. It's been very hard because we were covering the case and then we were starting to regurgitate everything that we had learned. And people were starting to forget, known information. And it was like educating a whole new, and it was just, I couldn't do it again. It was hard enough doing it the first time. It was hard enough learning about this child. It was hard enough learning about her life. It was hard enough learning, all these horrible things. And it does, I'm a human being. These cases bother me. Okay. I just didn't have the mentality or the emotional well-being to cover the case again at that time. We were exhausted. I felt like we were spinning our wheels. I felt like we were just, regurgitating the same stuff over and over and over again to keep this precious baby's face in the spotlight, just for us to be obstructed and no work being done by Hawkins County. I just, to be honest with you, I gave up. I couldn't do anymore. Could I help the case any further? I couldn't. And that's what I had to ask myself. Can I benefit this case anymore? When that answer becomes no, we find another case. It's not that we're giving up on the case. It's just that we need some rest. We need some refocus. We need some redirection. And no matter how many times we redirected the case, it went back to the same place. So that's where it's always been with the Summer Wells case. And my opinion and my assessment on this case has never changed. There's never been any information that's came up to support a different scenario other than the mom and the father. Dad was home that day. I don't care what anybody tells you. Everything I've uncovered, Dad came home from work with the boys. He was there. The boys were home when they came home. We know that because Candus said that. There's no way those boys could have been home if they were at work with their father earlier that day without Don being there or coming to that house. Don tells us he never came back to the house until he knew his daughter was missing. That is a lie. Sometimes I think he knows, but I don't think he was actively involved. I think he was the one that took care of. He was the only one out of the house. Candus left a couple times. God knows where she went. She could have met Don, but Don is the one that I believe ultimately disposed of Summer Wells, kind of like how I feel about Christopher Proudfoot. Do I think Christopher Proudfoot unalived Sebastian Rogers? No, the evidence supports his wife did that. The evidence supports that it appears that he's the one that would have come back to clean it up. And that's my theory when it comes to Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, is that Katie strangled her son and called Chris, and Chris got there to help her clean up the issue and stage. And I nothing's going to change my mind. Anything short of factual information that goes against that statement. So, hey Jen, it's nice to see you. Sebastian was definitely on purpose, in my opinion. I think so. I think it was a blowout. I think Katie has put her hands around his neck in the past. When she's lost her cool, I think that's why we saw a healing bruise on his Adam apple, because I think that, several days before this incident, I think that they had another incident that nobody knew about that caused the bruise on his throat. But I believe that she kind of snapped, and I believe it was an accident, but intentional. I think it was one of those types of accidents where you kind of, I think she raged, and once the rage was over, the damage was done. That's what I kind of envisioned that happened, with Sebastian. But Summer Wells is different. I can't decide, because the information from the water hole may suggest that there is a potential for dry drowning, but we know how much of an S deviant her father is. Did he try to SA her and something go terribly wrong? We've heard those types of things happen, and ruptures and, bleeding out, and, we've heard of those things before. That's always been in the back of my mind after learning who Don Wells was and is. So I don't know. We don't know how or what happened, but I don't think it was good. And all she wanted was to be loved. And not only that, but her mother treated her like crap. That was another thing that we uncovered when we were out there doing the work that we were doing. We talked to a store clerk, and the store clerk described how Candus would let her sons go in there and buy candy and would make Summer Wells watch the kids buy candy. And then she would smack her if she started throwing a fit wanting candy. That's the kind of psychological abuse Candus did to her daughter. So these are things that we uncovered that many people didn't want to look at or listen to. We also sat down with law enforcement. Many people know because that was also recorded. We met with law enforcement. We were there for 2 days and gave them our entire file of everything that we uncovered, including the statements that Hunter and his mother had and her family had stated. We had recommended them getting a forensic psychologist, a juvenile forensic psychologist to work with Hunter to help him uncover some things, because I truly believe he witnessed something and may have forgotten, because the brain does that. It covers things up for you so you don't have to relive it. It's a coping mechanism that you don't get to choose. So that's what we recommended, and I'm not sure if they ever did that or not. We do know that he eventually ended up going into a home because he got in trouble, and I was hoping that maybe they would at that point, give him a counselor. So I don't know if they ever did. All I know is that Hunter's statements today, are in direct conflict of the statements he made early on in the case. So he's already forgetting. I don't think he's intentionally misstating things. I think his brain's just forgotten. It does do that to you. When you undergo a lot of trauma, your brain has this way of cutting some of the trauma out and just blocking it. It's almost like amnesia in part. A whole section of your life just poof, you have no memory of. And that was what I was concerned with Hunter. And I believe after the last few times I've heard Hunter restate the statements, there was a lot of differences in the statements that he gave Chris McDonough early on in the case. So we're monitoring this case, guys. Summer Wells' case is not over. It is cold. We're hoping that this might heat it back up. I'm glad to see that Jason Jensen is the one turning that, because I would probably have a different conversation if it was a private investigator I was unaware of. But I personally know Jason Jensen, and I have high respect and high regard for him. So I'm tuning into this. So I'll keep you guys posted. Rock it out with your coffee beans out. We'll see you soon.